JD Brewer here, and today I want to talk about the art of a conversation. In the age of social media, where people keep a Doogie Howser MD type diary of their daily comings and goings, people get a sculpted idea of what their friends and family think or feel. With the scroll of the screen, I know how many times your toddler threw up at the fair, how you celebrated your birthday at that laser tag place for adults, when you met Sandra Bullock, and these days, who you intend to vote for. Social media has morphed into the sounding board for every personal, political, and social news story. It is the tack board of opinions and personal truths. It is the hashtag of all hashtags. So, confession time. When it comes to social media, I tend to stay on the positive side of life, posting mainly about the things that make me happy rather than unhappy. I talk a lot about my husband and friends/family, my dogs, hashtag puppies are my coworkers, and my many adventures. In the sea of negativity on social media, people tend to like these posts. And according to the Facebook algorithms, the more likes I get on the post, the more likely it is to show up on top of your feed. As a result, the more people who see this uber positive life I portray, the more I have people thinking I lead a very charmed existence. True, I am oftentimes more than just Facebook happy, but I am human. Those who know me well know I've had a pretty rocky road behind me, and I deal with obstacles just like everyone else. However, when I have a tough day, unlike most, I do not turn to Facebook and document it in detail. I call a friend, I hug my husband, I pet my dogs. I cannot find the comfort I need within the blinding white screen of a computer. I can, however, find comfort in conversation. Yet every once in a while, I shy away from this policy. I repost an article that speaks to me on the social or political level, or I comment on an event that hurts my heart. Now, caveat here. Politically speaking, I am a liberally inclined feminist that veers towards the middle on most issues, more towards the left on social issues like poverty, race, and equality. My personal experiences, education, time in the classroom, and hopes lean me this way, and I understand that not everyone has walked the same path as me. My home is in the great state of Texas, where people are not so inclined to think like me. Diversity of thought is a powerful thing, which is why I am not quick to unfriend people who disagree with me on fundamental things. If nothing else, the variegated thoughts streaming on my feed remind me that not everyone thinks as I do. And this is where things get tricky. When I shy away from the happy and venture into my personal beliefs or questions about the world, it opens up a strange can of worms. People who think they know me well because of what they see online see these posts as an invitation for debate. They suddenly want to have a conversation, assuming that I am not educated on the topic in my own way. Except they forget that to have a conversation, by definition, you need an informal exchange of ideas by the spoken word. There is an organic, alive nature to true conversations where meaning is not just determined by the word, but by the inflection, the tone, the connotation, the volume, and the facial expressions attached to the words. There is a chemistry to a conversation where all these ingredients come together into the exploration of thought, and the listening is just as important as the speaking. I have this best friend, and we sometimes argue like sisters. She is fiery, a strong, educated, amazing woman, and sometimes our opinions clash like crazy because we know how to outsmart each other. Years ago, we used to get into these text messaging misunderstandings. She'd read something I wrote the wrong way and vice versa. Next thing we knew, we were both fuming mad over a simple miscommunication, and it only fixed itself when we finally picked up the phone and called each other. Now we have this policy. The moment we start getting frustrated at a text message, we stop the exchange and call. It hit me then that there were times I'd get trapped into the same pattern on Facebook. I'd post something, one of my various friends would heatedly disagree, and the debate would go on for hours. Black text, anemic in intention, firing back and forth, forth and back, and nothing would ever get solved. Minds never changed this way. The first time I read Plato, I remember being terribly confused by a dialogue about writing between Socrates and Phaedrus. As a writer, I found Socrates' take on it highly soul-crushing. I always thought writing was this organic place of thought, but upon my experiences with Facebook this week, I finally get what he meant when he said, I cannot help feeling, Phaedrus, that writing is unfortunately like painting, for the creations of the painter have the attitude of life, and yet if you ask them a question, they preserve a solemn silence. And the same may be said of speeches. You would imagine that they had intelligence, but if you want to know anything and put a question to one of them, the speaker always gives one unvarying answer. And when they have been once written down, they are tumbled about anywhere among those who may or may not understand them, and know not to whom they should reply, to whom not. And if they are maltreated or abused, they have no parent to protect them, and they cannot protect or defend themselves. It's like Socrates and Plato anticipated Facebook and the inadequate forum for dialogue it would become. To be clear, writing does have its purpose in regards to thought. It traps thought to a page and offers sentences to reflect upon over time. But you see, once written, there is this permanent nature to words. They become trapped, a mosquito in amber, a thought in the catalogue of time. I love going back to my old journals and annotations when I reread a book and see just how much my view on the world has changed from then until now. I still believe that the written word is a beautiful thing, a thing that evokes thought or discussion. Yet the written word can only inspire conversation, not be the conversation. The written words lack the most important element to the very definition of conversing. It must be spoken. Which is why these debates on Facebook often lead nowhere. When people write, it's usually a thought they already have cemented in their heart. They have to formulate the words and mold them into meaning, then translate that meaning into the written form. They are so focused on their own response that they are prone to barely skimming the replies of their opposition for meaning, especially if the opposition's beliefs are contrary to their own. Going in, they already think that anything their opposition says must be untrue or uneducated, and it is their job to fix their opponent's broken, ignorant thoughts. They go into social media ready to battle. A new word has been invented for this out of an old one: trolling. It used to mean baiting fish, but now it means baiting people online. And sometimes when I post something I believe, something I have given a lot of thought on, something I have, in fact, educated myself on to the point of this belief, people decide to troll me. And since I have such diverse friends online, the trolling tends to happen anytime I post something political or social. In a trolling match, both sides dig their heels into the sand because how can they go back on something that they wrote? There's a pride issue here, one that is dangerous to the evolving nature of thought. Because they shouted out their truths to the world in a written, permanent form, they become ashamed of altering those truths when appropriate. They become cemented to the indelible nature of the words they typed. And this is where Socrates finally made sense to me. Not even as a decently articulate writer can I convince someone who is already trapped to the permanence of their own thoughts. In fact, any true redirection of my own thoughts in the past were not a result of a Facebook debate, but of a real-life conversation that involved questioning, listening, and building. True, some of these conversations were inspired by something read or viewed online, but I attribute the change of opinion to the respectful nature of true dialogue, to the give and take between two people willing to listen and compromise to get to a real truth. Which brings me to today. I posted something political and things got trolly. Sometimes I slip, but for the most part, I have a do not engage policy. I do not take the bait. If someone knows me well enough and they are concerned about my thoughts and beliefs, I encourage them to call me or have a cup of coffee with me. However, I refuse to subject myself to the verbal sparring match of someone who is not willing to listen equally as much as they are willing to shout at me online. To top it off, if I find something offensive, I delete it from my wall because it is my wall. It is my Doogie Howser MD type journal, and I want it to reflect me. I encourage people to post their beliefs on their wall, and I will either read it in my feed or gently scroll past it if it does not intrigue me. Nor will I try to dissuade you by engaging in something you post on social media. Quite frankly, if you mean enough to me and I know we can have a respectful conversation about something we disagree on, then I will call you or ask you over for dinner so we can talk. Not so I can get you to think like me, but so we can find a common ground, an understanding for where we both come from, and maybe we can make each other think from a different perspective for just a moment that will either inspire a personal change or a stronger belief. Yet today, I discovered that the more I deleted, the more people wanted to comment contrarily to my post. They engaged in arguments with my other friends who commented, and people got even angrier that I didn't want to participate in the hateful things that was said. Whether it was because they wanted a fight or because I didn't agree with them, I'll never really know. Yet somehow, in the span of an evening, my post became a verbal war zone. And I guarantee not one of the people engaging walked away thinking differently. I guarantee everyone felt validated in the ideas they already had rather than thoughtful and willing to think beyond themselves. I was accused of propagating propaganda because I posted an opinion. Accused by people who post similar opinions but do not see it as propaganda because it validates their personal truths. Then I was accused of not wanting to have a conversation through an avenue that is actually the death of conversation, through an avenue where people can hide behind their computer screens, blow up in anger, and release hate through their keyboards. And they feel justified in doing so because someone is not right in front of them. They become less tied to propriety, respect, and decency that personal interactions require. And the moment those three things go out the window, conversation becomes impossible. The reality is, conversation is what this world needs now more than ever. So please, pick up the phone, call an old friend, go out for drinks. Talk about something real and opened up your heart to the possibility that your worldview is not the only worldview that is valid, because no two worldviews are identical. And above all, think before you troll. Thanks for listening. I know this one was kind of a long one, but I appreciate you taking the time to pay attention to it. For more picture stories and shenanigans, don't forget to subscribe and follow me on Twitter at JD Brewer Books. Also, if you're into sci-fi, check out my 3 novels, Vagabond, The Birth of Anarchy, and Intrepid. I hope you have a wonderful and positive day. I'll talk to y'all later.